I'm definitely one of those comedians that's very like pro PC. I believe like you can say things in a really smart way without having like you can explore controversial topics without being offensive. And if you can't do that, I don't know, be smarter. Like come up with something better.
I'm feeling some Dave Chappelle shade already in our conversation.
Yeah,
Hey everyone, I just wrapped up an amazing conversation with two remarkable comedians, Denise Winkleman and Olivia Levine. They bring all of themselves to their work. So we had a great conversation about this moment, attacks on the First Amendment and free speech, what it means to bring joy to the work, and they both have some powerful messages for queer young people today. I hope you like the conversation. Welcome, 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 Denise Winkleman and Olivia Levine. Welcome to Our American Dreams.
good to be here.
Great to be here.
Love it. Well, I'm excited to dig in because I have so many questions about how you are navigating this moment and how you are still finding joy in what sometimes seems like a joyless world. But to get us started, I wonder if you could introduce yourselves a little bit, talk about your work, share a bit with our audience how you show up in the world. And I guess we'll start with you, Denise.
Sure. So my name is Denise Winkleman. I'm a comedian based out of LA. So I've been in LA for about 5 years. I've been doing comedy for about 8. Started in the beautiful city of Denver and moved to Los Angeles 2 weeks before the pandemic started. So it's been a fantastic journey.
And so you've been through nothing in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I transitioned before that, so this has been easy. But no, it hasn't been. But no, I feel lucky, and I recorded a comedy special about a year and a half ago. Just came out on Amazon, Apple TV. Have the album. It came out as an album as well. It's called Bougie on a Budget. Starting to tour a little bit. So those are kind of the main things that I have going on right now.
Well, congratulations on all your success. I have to say that Bougie on a Budget describes my entire life. So thank you for putting my life to words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I felt like it was appropriate these days.
All of us are living bougie on a budget. Olivia, I'm excited to hear about what you've got going on, what you're working on.
Yeah. So I am also a comedian, actor, writer based in New York City. And right now I am performing my solo show off Broadway at Soho Playhouse. The show is called Unstuck. It's about the intersection of my obsessive compulsive disorder and my queerness. I've been doing the show for a few years now. I brought it to Edinburgh Fringe in 2024, and that kind of helped facilitate this run off Broadway. And it's been really exciting. We're like a week into the run, and I've gotten really great responses so far. So that's kind of presently what I am up to. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. I have to say, I have some intersections with the two of you. So one of my very best friends is a queer woman with OCD who is from Denver, Colorado. So it's like you have come together to create my life. I am bougie on a budget with queer OCD friends from Colorado. It's like you're the personification of every day of my life.
I love that.
I want to talk about the First Amendment because it feels so critical to not just the work that you're doing, but the importance of comedy, especially in really challenging times. And whether we're talking about, George Carlin or Richard Pryor or Margaret Cho or Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, right? Comedians have always been at the forefront of protecting First Amendment rights to free speech. And they've also played a really important role in holding authoritarian leaders accountable, in, giving people humorous and interesting ways to plug into fighting for freedom of speech. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about this moment and how you're navigating it, how you're processing some of the attacks we've seen on free speech, and how you feel about where the country is headed.
I think it's an interesting moment because there are a couple things that happen in the comedy world, right? You have people like Jimmy Kimmel and Colbert. You have their shows getting canceled and then, put back on the air because of what they're saying. And they're saying really important things. And it's really scary that that what they're saying and doing is being censored. And then you also have the other side of things where, like, you know, there are some comedians and some schools of thought, I guess, in the comedy world where people believe they can say whatever they want about anyone they want and not be critiqued, or that it's important not to have like sort of the woke PC movement be too on top of what comedians say, right? So there's like this interesting conversation between those two things, I think. And I'm definitely one of those comedians that's very like pro PC. You know, I believe like you can say things in a really smart way without having, like, you can explore controversial topics without being offensive. And if you can't do that, I don't know, be smarter. You know, like come up with something better.
I'm feeling some Dave Chappelle shade already in our conversation.
Yeah, you know, I'm just like, figure out a way to do it that's not offensive. It is a really scary moment when you see people like, you know, Charlie Kirk being lauded, and then people like Jimmy Kimmel or whoever else losing their jobs, you know, having their citizenship threatened for speaking up against someone like Charlie Kirk. So yeah, it's a scary time. And I think just like, personally, I'm trying to create and stay in community with my fellow queer folks and my fellow comedians, and really, really talk about kind of like the nuances of what it means to perform and say words, because words are really important. I think words are actions. And, you know, to me, what that means is you have to use them carefully, but also you have to be brave and use them. So yeah.
You know, Denise, I'm curious your thoughts here, because I also wonder, you know, what about like personal safety and well-being? How do you navigate those things at a time when we're asking people to be courageous? We need people to be courageous, and it's scary out there. It is not always safe to be that courageous.
Yeah, no, 100%. Olivia stated that so well. I do think that is a very legitimate concern. So luckily, I'm in Los Angeles. I perform in Los Angeles or Southern California a lot. So it does tend to be a different type of audience. It feels a little more insulated, where you can, you know, kind of say, you know, what's on your mind, and they don't take that away from you. Starting to do the Midwest, starting to do other places. So, you know, we'll see how that goes and how that changes, because safety is important. I saw a comedian post recently that she was in Louisiana or Florida, maybe Georgia, somewhere conservative. But she brought a gay man as an opener for her. And, you know, some couples got up and walked out during her set and were very upset about that. So the comedy club didn't have a problem with it. So, but it does feel like, okay, well, what could happen? How do you protect yourself? I don't know if there's a good answer. Luckily, I'm tall, and luckily, I think I blend fairly well, where most people don't bug me. But you know, we'll see how it goes. I've been very selective in the cities that I choose to do. They tend to be a little more bluish in those places. But you'll be surprised, because I've had people watch the comedy special in, you know, Akron, or, you know, somewhere that you would think wasn't really inclusive, and they're like, we need this and we want you to come and see us. So I think the most important thing is just, we're very divided, you know, as far as views on everything as a country. And there's like 50%, you know, no matter where you go, or at least pockets of area that need to laugh and you know, want to come and support you. So it's kind of like finding your audience a little bit.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I have a few thoughts. First, I just want to say that you're both very courageous for existing in this space, in this world, for using your voices so unapologetically. That's what it takes, right? That's what it takes. And I think one of the things we sometimes lose as we're looking for the big Hollywood moment that American democracy is rescued. Everyone's looking for that, you know, political knight in shining armor to come in and save them. The thing I think we miss is we give each other permission every day to be a part of that solution. And we do it by showing up in these spaces you're talking about, right? By using our voices, by being visible, we give other people permission to do the same. And that's actually the most powerful organizing that every one of us is doing.
What are ways to get involved almost across state lines and creating those relationships to people in different states that are like doing these things because they have to and doing these things because they don't have community as readily available? I think that's interesting to sort of think about, like, how do I start to talk to the people in Florida and say, like, hey, I'm in New York, I'm in a position where I'm a little bit safer to be speaking about these things. How can I provide you support?
It's so important. And I'm thinking back to, my time organizing in the state. And I think some of the most important and powerful things that we were asking for others to do included, number one, elevate our voices, our perspectives, make sure people know that like there is really beautiful queer organizing that happens in deeply rural conservative places. The South is not lost. There are beautiful communities that are being built and have been built in the South. And then the other was we kept asking for people around the country to give people something to hope for, to give them something to fight for, right? Because it was so easy for us in, these places where the government, the political power structures did not represent us and our values. It was easy for us to talk about what we were up against, but it was so hard to give people a vision of what was possible when we won. And so we would look to our friends in places like LA and New York and DC to be like, this is what cities look like when we win. Okay, so we started talking a little bit about identity and the way that it shapes, the work that you do and the way that you show up in the world. And Denise, I'll start with you, but I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how identity does show up in your work. And I wonder if you feel any additional layers of pressure to be some like big representation for the community.
Yeah, for sure. And what you said was beautiful too. Yeah, so I've always felt that pressure. I transitioned in my 30s. It's been over 10 years at this point. So I transitioned moving from Cincinnati to Denver. And actually where I felt it first was I was working for a large financial company. And on my way out to Denver, when I transitioned, I got a call from, somebody, really high up with the company. And they said I was the first person to openly transition. And I was like, well, I better get this right. I don't want to make it worse for anyone. And I hope I did. I helped the company implement trans benefits. It was a long process, but I try to take that same attitude with comedy. The first 2 years I was in comedy, I never talked about being trans. I was doing some fitness modeling at the time. And someone found out I was trans and I got fired from a job and certain things like that. So I was really careful. And what happened was I wasn't really having fun. And I was like, if I'm going to do comedy, I want this to be real. I want to be fearless. I want to be real. I also want to be really funny.
I've been thinking a lot about resisting authoritarianism and what we know throughout history works. And people are drawn to these cultural, social moments together. I think the right wing has done a really good job of taking those spaces and turning them into politics, taking people on this journey. And that may be a place where we can do more to support you all, to say, like, these are actually the cultural messengers of our time. These are the social messengers of our time.
I grew up in a small town in Minnesota and very conservative evangelical parents. When I was promoted in the special, I did an interview with my hometown paper and ended up getting a lot of publicity throughout the state. But I was shocked at how many people in this conservative community came and embraced me and just said, we love what you're doing. We've never met like a comedian who has a special, anything like that. But the fact that I was trans, they knew, but they had no problem with it.
I wonder if you can talk about how it shapes your content. And do you ever feel, this is just me being like so curious, do you ever feel pressure to make jokes about the community, like to self-deprecate a little bit? Do you feel pressure to not make jokes about the community? How does your identity help to shape the content you create?
Yeah, I mean, I think for better or for worse, like I'm such a personal comedian that I'm just always going to talk about what is personal to me, whether that be my queerness or my OCD or my mom, my relationships. So it's like there's no way I'm not going to talk about being very gay. Like my mom at one point, my mom being my mom, whom I love dearly, but she was like, Olivia, do you ever do like not queer comedy shows? And I was like, yes, mom, I do, but like my content is very gay. Um, I think like, and that's important to me. Like that will always be my lens. I'm very outspokenly queer. I think there are a lot of parts of my identity that like enable that to be the case. You know, like I am a white cis woman that lives in New York and I'm from San Francisco. And I think a lot of the time when people like, and I mentioned that, I mentioned those aspects of my privilege, not to be like, oh, I have to mention that, but it's like, that's important. That's important to say because that factors into what I'm able to do and what I'm not able to do. You know, my show is very specific, but I've discovered tends to resonate with a lot of people for different reasons, whether it be the queerness aspect or the OCD aspect, or just more generally about like shame as a woman or a person with a vagina that experiences what it is to sort of have your sexuality, I guess, kind of policed or defined in a certain way from an early age.
I don't think people, especially young people, resonate with perfection in the same way that they resonate with authenticity. Like we're all a little messy. We've all made mistakes before. You know, people have grown up in very public ways and have learned along the way to, you know, navigate being tripped up. And so I think when we put forward leaders that we want to amplify, right, and empower, I think there's just a premium on authenticity. I wonder if you could share with us, what does the American dream mean to you right now?
To me, it means just being able to go out and be yourself and, not hurt other people, like Olivia said earlier, as far as attacking other communities, just live and let live. And say equal opportunity, but the opportunity to have a job and have health care and do the things that you would consider a normal American. For me personally, I'm a dreamer, I'm a comedian. I want to be able to go into any room and just be able to make people laugh, regardless which other side of the aisle, but talk about my truth, talk about things that are funny to me and find that audience and be safe to do that.
It's beautiful. Olivia, what does the American dream mean to you right now?
My American dream is like about connecting with people from all over this country, kind of like you're saying. I think there are so many more overlaps than most people understand, or like there are points of connection that I think are perhaps becoming even more readily apparent at this point as we see things that we used to think were the right, like, free speech stuff, now it's shifting across party lines in some ways. I think just like even what you're doing with this series, like going all over the place and figuring out what people want and need and what's going on is so important, that we don't just stay in our New York bubble or LA bubble or DC bubbles, and like connect with people, because like really scary stuff is happening, and understanding how to not just be like, wow, that's scary going on over there, like, but this is our country and it's happening here and it's happening close. Like, how do we get involved on a day-to-day, like sustainable basis? And how do we connect with other people so we can figure out how to like contribute together?